Princess Leonor stuns Copenhagen with first royal speech. Wife-to-be. The chandeliers glittered above the grand hall in Copenhagen. Royal guests from across Europe filled the room, expecting a formal evening, filled with tradition and polished ceremony. A future queen was in attendance, and the air buzzed with anticipation. But then, something unexpected happened. Princess Leonor of Spain, the heir to the throne, not yet crowned, not yet married, but standing on the threshold of a new life, rose to speak. The daughter of King Felipe and Queen Letizia, known for her quiet composure and disciplined elegance, delivered her very first royal speech on foreign soil, and the room fell into stunned silence. Not because she faltered, not because she hesitated, but because she spoke with a strength, a grace, and a conviction far beyond her years. The question is, how did a 19-year-old princess captivate an entire city, and why did this moment matter so deeply, not only to Copenhagen, not only to Denmark, but to Spain, to Europe, and to the very legacy of the monarchy itself? To answer that, we must step back. From the moment of her birth, Leonor was destined to carry Spain's crown. Unlike her younger sister Sophia, who could grow more freely into her role, Leonor's path was laid before her. Every step, every gesture, every smile would one day reflect not just on her, but on the throne she will inherit. And yet, through her teenage years, Leonor remained something of a mystery. She studied abroad quietly, away from the relentless Spanish press, preparing in silence while other royals dazzled in public. So when she was invited to Copenhagen, standing not only as Spain's crown princess but also as the fiancée of a young man whose family ties reach into Denmark's own royal household, many expected a polite presence. A graceful bow, a few quiet words, nothing more. What they received was a revelation. Leonor's speech began simply, acknowledging the warmth of Denmark and the centuries of ties between the two monarchies. But as her voice grew steadier, the tone shifted. She spoke not as a sheltered princess, but as a leader. She wove together the history of Spain, the sacrifices of her ancestors, and the responsibilities of a modern crown in a Europe changing faster than tradition could keep pace. Every word was chosen with care. Every pause carried weight. The audience, which included Queen Margrethe's family, diplomats, politicians, and even members of the press who arrived skeptical, found themselves leaning in. Not because she was speaking as the daughter of a king, but because she was speaking as a woman who already embodied the authority of a queen. And here lies the first loop of curiosity. Why did Leonor choose this moment, in Copenhagen, to step into her voice as a leader? Why here, far from Madrid, far from her people, far from the Spanish palace walls? The answer, whispered by insiders, is that Leonor wanted to surprise. She wanted her first major address to take place not under the watchful eyes of her homeland but before an international audience, neutral ground where her words could be weighed for what they were, not for what the Spanish press might twist them into. But another question rises: why did her speech feel so personal? Because between the lines of diplomacy and duty, she spoke as a wife-to-be. Without naming him, she referenced the bond that ties families, nations, and hearts across borders. A subtle nod to her future husband, present in the room, who belongs to a family that Denmark knows well. Those words transformed the atmosphere. This was not just the voice of a princess, it was the voice of a young woman in love, preparing to bridge two dynasties. And that is where the tension lies. Royal love. Stories have never been simple. For every fairy tale marriage, there are whispers of scandal, heartbreak, and sacrifice. Queen Letizia herself, Leonor's mother, knows this too well. Once a commoner, once a journalist, she walked into the Spanish monarchy under a storm of criticism. She endured it, but she never forgot it. She raised Leonor with that same lesson: strength is not optional, it is survival. So when Leonor stood in Copenhagen, it was not just her own voice speaking. It was the echo of her mother's resilience, her father's discipline, her grandmother's traditions. It was Spain itself speaking through her. And yet, the speech held another layer. Observers noted how often Leonor referenced the youth of Europe. She spoke directly to the next generation, reminding them that the monarchy must earn its place not through birthright alone but through service, empathy, and unity. That line, "to serve is not a privilege, it is a duty," struck deeply. It was quoted in headlines the next morning across Denmark, Spain, and beyond. So what does this mean for her future? For Spain, it signals a new kind of monarchy. One less rigid, less distant, and more attuned to the modern world. For Denmark, it signals that Leonor's future marriage is not just a personal union but a symbolic bridge. And for Europe, it suggests that the next generation of royals, led by figures like Leonor, Prince Christian, Princess Elizabeth of Belgium, and Princess Ingrid Alexandra of Norway, will redefine what it means to wear a crown. But what did the audience truly feel in that moment? Reports from the evening describe a quiet awe. Some diplomats admitted privately that they expected a stiff, rehearsed performance. What they witnessed instead was a young woman speaking with fire, a young woman unafraid to let her heart show through the formality. When she finished, the applause was not polite, it was thunderous. Queen Margrethe herself was said to have leaned toward her grandson and whispered, "She will be a fine queen." And yet, even as she triumphed, there was an undercurrent of fragility. Because with every word Leonor spoke, the expectations around her grew heavier. The press declared her the voice of a new era. Social media crowned her already as Europe's brightest royal star. And in that weight of admiration lies the seed of future struggle. Can she balance the role of queen with the role of wife, mother, and woman? This is the chain of curiosity that keeps the world watching. Her speech in Copenhagen was not just an event. It was a promise. A promise of leadership, of love, of resilience. But promises are only as strong as the trials they survive. And so, as she prepares for her wedding, as she prepares to bind her life not only to her country but to another family, another nation, the question remains, how much of herself can she keep? And how much will the crown take from her? That night in Copenhagen, Princess Leonor stunned the world. She spoke not as a girl, not as a bride-to-be, but as a future queen who knows the path before her is lined with sacrifice. And yet, she walked into it without fear. Her speech was more than words. It was history in motion. It was the heart of a young woman beating through centuries of tradition. It was Spain's future revealing itself, for the first time, under the chandeliers of Copenhagen. And it left everyone asking, if this is how Leonor begins, what will she become when the crown is finally hers? That is why her first royal speech was unforgettable. That is why Copenhagen will never forget the night Princess Leonor, wife-to-be, stood tall, spoke boldly, and stunned the world.